You're listening to the Sensuality Project podcast, where the messiness of real life gets sexy, hosted by Stacey Herrera. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only. Episodes contain profane language and topics of a sexual nature that may not be suitable for children. Listener discretion is strongly advised. I'm so glad you're here again, joining me for another episode of the Sensuality Project podcast hosted by moi. I am just enjoying this so much. Oh my goodness, the conversations that I have been having have been just so expansive. Like I just feel so nourished every single time. Every woman brings some new flavor. I learn something new with every single chat. It's just amazing. I hope that you're feeling how I'm feeling. So, my guest today, my sister friend, Mia Davis. I cannot say enough about Mia. Mia and I are in the same coaching circle, and when we met, we immediately vibed. Like, we immediately had a connection. It was almost like I remembered her. Like, it was just so amazing. Like, we just got along from the very beginning. And so we decided that we would be emotional accountability partners. Like that wasn't a thing, but we made it a thing. And it's been great. Like we check in with each other. You know, it's like, how's your heart, sister? Like we ask those kinds of questions. We're able to be really raw and vulnerable. Nothing's off limit. Everything is accepted. It's just great. I love her so much. You're going to love her too. In this conversation, we talked about all kinds of good stuff about like thank yous and gratitude and money stories and receiving and accepting and oh my goodness it's just so good. In fact, one of the my favorite things that Mia says in this conversation is we have an idea in our minds of what love is supposed to look like, feel like, and taste like. And we do, right? We do have these preconceived ideas about what love is and what it's supposed to be like. And we talk about that in this episode. She's just so expansive, so insightful, so amazing. She is just, I'm inspired. I'm inspired every time I see her work, every time I hear her voice, every time we communicate. And I know you're going to love her just as much as I do. And as always, you will be able to find the show notes to this episode on my website and I give you access to any of the resources we mentioned, which actually we mentioned some great books in this episode. So you definitely should check out the show notes page. Share this episode with your sister friends because we are starting a movement. Hello, movement. So share this episode with your sister friends and I'm going to stop talking now. Give it a listen. Okay. Edible undies or crotchless panties?
Wow, what an opening question.
I thought of that right before we got on.
Okay, say it again.
Um,
Let's see.
edible undies or crotchless panties?
Mm. Well, I like food.
Right?
So, as soon as you said edible, I'm like, I'm in. I would have to go with the edibles because not just that, but because I've never tried them. And
You
that's something
know,
I've always been curious about.
I tasted a pair a long time ago. They probably are better now. I remember
Okay.
not enjoying them very much, but this was probably, gosh, probably early 2000s. So I'm sure
Okay.
now they probably taste better.
I would hope so. I mean, if I had to choose a flavor that I would want to try, it would probably be like a chocolate espresso,
Look,
something
I'm
like that.
already tasting that in my mouth. Yes, I'm already tasting it in my mouth. I immediately thought of like a chocolate stout beer because I
Ooh,
love dark beer. Like I love
yeah,
dark, heavy beer. And as soon as you said chocolate espresso, that's what I thought about.
nice. Yeah. Now I have tried Guinness. And
Yes.
I do, and I've heard stories. My friends used to say, "Oh, it's too heavy, it's nasty, it's this and that." And I tried it, and I was like, "I'm a fan. I
Okay.
like the dark, rich.
Me
You know,
too.
I really do like that dark, deep flavor.
Have you
Something
have you
intense.
tried have you tried Guinness with a scoop of vanilla ice cream?
Oh my God! Don't bring my world down.
Girl,
No, I have not.
look, get you some this weekend. It's so good. Like it seems strange. Like, why would you put ice cream in beer? When I tell you it is
Uh huh.
delicious. Guinness with
Really?
vanilla bean ice cream. I could eat
That's
it all
like an
day.
adult root beer float almost.
Yes, it is
Oh,
heavenly. It's so good. I mean, it's super filling though, because Guinness is filling anyway. But once you
right.
add the ice cream, it's really filling. But it's so good.
Now, do you have a specific vanilla ice cream that you would use with that?
I really enjoy Haagen-Dazs vanilla bean, but I also
Ah,
like Talenti vanilla bean gelato.
ooh. Okay, so
It's
I actually have some of that in my freezer.
Oh, well, there you go. Like all you need is a Guinness. It's so good. Like it's really good. Surprisingly good.
Okay. You know what? That's an amazing like Saturday night, just shut in movie kind of a deal for me. That sounds like a plan in the motion.
Yeah, so heavenly. And on a Saturday night with a Guinness float, the only thing you
Mm.
need to accompany it is some homemade popcorn popped in coconut oil.
Ooh. See, I knew that I would be hungry after our call today. I'm gonna have to go grocery shopping and stock up
Right.
on all these delicious things.
Well, you have
Yes,
to tell me how you enjoy it.
I definitely will.
Okay, so
Definitely.
now I'm going to ask you a questions from Dirty Minds because these are fun and they get people every time. So,
Okay.
okay, let's see. I'm going to give you three clues and then you tell me what the item is.
Ooh, okay.
You are usually naked when you come inside of me. I'm hot and moist. You wipe up with a towel when you're done.
That was the immature laugh that comes out with these kind of things. Um, a shower.
You're really close.
I'm really close.
Yeah, it's shower like, but without the running water.
A bath.
Close. It's in that realm though. It's tiled typically.
It's tiled.
Yeah, just like a bathroom would be tiled. It's like tiled like that.
Oh, this is a room. It's like a
Hmm.
like a bath.
A steam room.
A steam. Ooh. Yes.
Right? Like you're usually naked when you come inside of me, and I'm
But
hot and moist, and you wipe up with a towel when you're done.
ooh, that is dirty, but it's so great.
Right? Yeah,
Yes.
that's one of
A
my favorite.
steam room. I like
Steam
that.
room. Okay, so the last question is,
Mhm.
well, it's more of a rate shore question. So, rate your capacity for pleasure on a scale of 1 to 10.
Wow. That's quite a question. I'm gonna have to say this is something that in my life I has been a back and forth struggle for me is the pleasure part. So, but I would say right now in my life, and this is a step up, I would say a 6.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if you have asked me this question a year ago, it probably would have been a 2, somewhere in that
Really?
range.
What changed
Yes.
in the last year?
Well, number 1, becoming single.
Hmm.
That definitely happened, and that needed to happen in order to explore um pleasure. Most people, would think it would be the opposite,
Hmm.
but it was more of me exploring my own individual pleasure that needed to happen. That was something I was very closed off to. So last year this time, I was more in a place of, trying to build business, trying to find clients. I was more in a masculine seat of
Mm,
go, 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 on the daily grind, as they say, on the hustle, as they say. And by the time, night came, I'd have to think, did I eat dinner? Um, should I take a bath? No, I don't have the energy to take a bath right now. I'll just take a quick shower, that sort of thing. I was really cutting myself off from all the things that I really enjoyed, you
mhm.
know, and that actually, in my opinion, kind of pushed me to the edge. Like I became very burnt out being in that masculine energy for so long. And
It's I think that it's so interesting how, and because I've had a similar experience, how in a relationship that is no longer serving us,
mhm,
how we start to withhold pleasure in a
yeah,
way, and at first it almost feels like, because sometimes it's completely unconscious, sometimes it's completely conscious, but for me it was
mhm,
completely unconscious, but withholding pleasure from my partner because there was some resentment, but it ends up turning into me completely withholding pleasure from myself, not just sexual pleasure, but pleasure
yeah,
in all aspects of my life, and being completely clueless, because there
mhm,
were moments of good times, like, so you don't even
right.
realize that you're not experiencing pleasure.
And that's the key there, is that I wasn't aware of that. And I had been doing this for 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
not aware, and I think that's very telling of society today. We're all kind of on the hustle, hustle, got to make money, got to pay bills, got to do that. Very masculine minded,
Mm-hmm.
driven, and it definitely has its place. But as women, you know, it's like if you go too much to the extreme, you do. And it's like you forget what pleasure feels like, tastes like, looks like. You just, your mind kind of puts it in the background, kind
Mm-hmm.
of packs it up and puts it in the garage, so to speak. And
Yeah.
that was a very interesting thing for me to experience because, before the relationship, I was a woman who, you put on a good song, or, I pop on a belly dance CD or go take a belly dance course. I love to dance, love to cook, love to take baths. It doesn't matter if it's 6 a.m. or, midnight. I always, kind of indulged myself in that way. And as the relationship started to progress, it was like that became the decline because I was feeling unsatisfied. I was feeling like I couldn't express that side of myself as much as I could in the beginning. And so slowly, and it's so gradual, you don't even realize it's happening. You just realize you're becoming unhappy. And
Mm-hmm.
then there was that moment where I was just like, I don't know when was the last time that I actually just sat outside and closed my eyes and put my feet in the dirt and just felt the sun on my skin and just took a deep breath and just was there, was present. That became something of the past. And I didn't even realize it, you know. So
I
that was
think that your experience is like so many. I know I've been there. I've been
yeah.
there more than once.
Wow. Yeah.
More than one time. I think that it speaks so much too as a woman. And like one of my most important things in this lifetime is being really good at relationships.
Yeah.
And but that what I didn't know a long time ago that I know now is that has to begin with being really good at the relationship with myself. And as a
Mhm.
woman, it's so easy to get so immersed in the supporting and the loving of somebody else that
Exactly.
that you lose yourself. And sometimes losing yourself in a person looks like being a junkie, like where you need a hit of that
Mhm.
person. And I've been that woman too. Like I've been her.
Yes.
But sometimes it looks like the hit doesn't always look like that. Sometimes it looks like needing to provide some kind of solace for the other person, or trying to
Mhm.
be super accommodating of their needs, of their insecurities, of their desires, and at the detriment of your own.
Right.
I'm
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I think that I've been her the majority of my life.
Wow. Wow. And what was the turning point for you?
Um, I remember there were a few pivotal moments. Like, I definitely remember the moment when I realized that I had become addicted. I thought I was addicted to a person, but it turns out I was addicted to the wound that that person could recreate for me.
Mm. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, and I wish I could say that it goes away ever. It doesn't. It's just that the recognition comes
Mhm.
sooner and the recovery time is faster.
Wow.
So it's
That's
not yeah, it's interesting, but I really thought I was addicted to the person. But once I sat in it, and it was several days of me literally sitting with the discomfort of wanting to be with this person and not
Mhm.
taking action on it, and which I
Right.
hadn't done before. Usually, you feel the craving and you immediately go to quench the craving.
Mhm.
But instead of doing that, and I have no idea why I decided all of a sudden to not, because it wasn't something I was consciously doing.
Yeah.
But in the sitting in it after like 3 days, because it wouldn't be all day long. It was once I got settled. It was once the day has gone by, I'm done working, and now there's stillness, and that's when the craving or the yearning would arise. And so
Mm.
that went on like 3 evenings in a row, like, so 3 times in a 3 days in a row, that feeling came up for me. And once it came up and I really sat in it, by day number 3, I was like, "Oh my goodness, what I'm craving is I had this desire to trade duty for love because that was a familiar pattern for me. I was
Wow.
really, really good at I was really good at doing things to get my mother's attention. And
Mhm.
so as an adult, when I no longer was doing that, playing that game with my mother, and it's not something my mother did on purpose either, but I learned it as a child, and it's like, "Oh, when I do this, she sees me," kind of thing. And
Right.
as an adult, I recreated that experience though with men. And so I would choose these men that were emotionally unavailable so that then
Mhm.
I could do my thing and then they would see me all of a sudden. And so in this one particular person though, I
Mhm.
thought it was all about him. Like, I loved the way I loved how my body felt when I was with him. I
Mhm.
loved our conversations, and I loved that I felt safe, in his
Mhm.
presence and all of those things. So I thought it was all about him, but it wasn't. It was that, again, like, I felt really safe when I was with my mother, and I felt really, comforted in her presence, whether she was talking to me or not. And I felt really excited and seen when I did something that she was able to see me and acknowledge me. And I just recreated that behavior and that pattern and that same, he fed the wound.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah, he
You
he
were
fed the wound.
as a famous, or I should say a very wise woman once told me, he was your wound mate.
Yep, he absolutely was. He absolutely was.
Yeah.
It's so interesting though. And again, that doesn't go away. Like, it doesn't go away.
Right.
It never goes away. It's not like, oh yeah, I don't do that anymore. I still feel it. I just
Mhm.
don't act on it. But there have been times since that experience where it snuck up on me and I didn't recognize it. And it
Mhm.
took me, a little bit of time to be like, why am I feeling like this about this person. And sometimes it's not even romantic. Like I've had the experience like in friendships where, you know, feeling discomfort or feeling like something isn't right with a friendship, but
Mhm.
liking the person, and then having some experiences or hearing some thoughts or seeing some behaviors and just kind of brushing them aside, um
Right.
and then still trying to be all of the things that that person needed to, and then it's like, oh shit, that's that I'm doing that thing again.
Right. It's so interesting when we catch ourselves in the
Right.
moment. You kind of snap out of it, but I can completely relate to what you're saying because I had the same thing. I come from a family of I'm one of 10 children. So you can imagine, feeling like you're being seen and heard with nine other people running around, and being very close to my parents, my mom and my dad, that was important to me. Especially as the family grew, when they were having my younger siblings, and there's six that are under me. And
Wow.
so, yeah, we're a football team just about. But having all of those siblings, there were times in my life, and this is me realizing it as a grown woman, that I absolutely just wanted attention from my mom or attention from my dad. And I can remember one incident that sticks out in my head. I can remember I had just had a little cold and I was in bed, and I can remember heating up the thermometer on the lamp and then telling my mom or calling to my mom saying, I have a temperature, I have a fever, just so that she would come and spend time with me. And I was getting acknowledgement, or, other ways that I would try to be seen is by getting better grades than my siblings. I was straight A's through, from kindergarten all the way through my graduate school. And there was a part of me that just wanted to stay at the top of the list. I didn't realize at that time that I was craving that acknowledgement. I was craving to be seen and heard. And so in relationships, just like you, I was really good at doing things in order to get attention. I would go on cleaning sprees, clean the house top to bottom. I'd cook big meals. I would go above and beyond what was typically what I expected of myself or what even the other person expected of me, just so that it'd be like, wow, Mia, you're amazing. You did this. And I didn't realize that that was my way of any type of relationship of being acknowledged for who I was. And when you realize that, it's like you said, it's like, oh shit, like I did that? Who am I? you know? It's really it's a tough thing, like you said, to sit with that, to sit with the uncomfort of knowing um how you have been in your relationships, or what you have been, the ways in which you have been showing up in your relationships or even in the world, the things that you have done from that wound place in order to be considered in a certain way. It's very interesting to me that that happens. And I think for me, that acknowledgement, though, after you get past the the shame and the guilt that might come out, because those things absolutely come up. They don't have to stay in the room, but they do come up. And after you can get past all of that, that's when the true healing of all that comes. And then you can create a new way of being for yourself and feel empowered that you have the choice from this point on. Since you have the awareness now, you can choose to stay in that place or to do something different. And it's absolutely a practice, but it's also a choice within that practice. And that's been a really key thing for me.
I agree, and I resonate with everything that you said. And you know, I had forgotten about the times when I played sick until you said that.
All right, let's hear one.
You know, some of the time, I
Mhm.
definitely remember. Oh, and this one is graphic. I remember in 7th grade, I did not like 7th grade. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like the
Mhm.
school that I went to. My mother insisted that I go to the same middle school as my older sister. And my older
Mhm.
sister she's still like the most popular kid in school. You know, like even at her
Mhm.
job, like she's the one that everybody wants to be her friend.
Mhm.
And so she always had a huge, pool of friends in school, and she still is like that at work.
Mhm.
And going to school with her, I felt even more invisible. Um, because
Mm.
of course she didn't want to be bothered with me all the time. At school, she just
Right.
seems to be at home. And she was a ninth grader and I was a seventh grader. But I remember I just felt like I didn't fit in at all in seventh grade. And
Mm.
I remember getting my period and
Mhm.
intentionally not changing my pad so that it would get on
Mhm.
my skirt so that my mother would come and get me.
Wow.
And then like tying my sweater around my waist
Mhm.
and going to the nurse's office. But I did it on purpose. But
Right.
but
Right.
going to
Interesting.
the nurse's office and so she could call my mother to come and get me.
Wow.
Because my mother, even though like we went to school in the valley, which was probably about an hour away from my house. But
Mhm.
even my mother driving out there, I knew she wasn't going to take my sister out of school too.
Right.
She would just pick me up and it would just be me and her.
Ah.
And I did a lot of things in terms of like just me and her stuff. Like my mother was an early bird. I am still a morning person because I developed that habit as a child,
Mhm.
because if I got up really early, I could have my mother all to myself.
Wow. It's amazing how we how
Mhm.
we do these things just for
Yep.
that attention.
And here it
Interesting.
is. I'm gonna be 44 and I still I still get up early like that. My mother doesn't anymore. Now that she's older, she's like, "Mm-mm, I sleep in." But I still get up early, but I developed the habit because
Mhm.
my mother would get up early, especially like Saturday mornings. My mom would get up
Mhm.
early to do laundry, and I'd get up early, you know, especially when we didn't have a washer and dryer in our house, and we'd
Mhm.
go to the laundromat. You know, my mother's really a neat freak, so she liked to
Mm.
be at the laundromat at 6 a.m. when they opened, and I
Mhm.
would get up really early with her. We'd go there and we'd have hot chocolate and croissants um, while we
Ooh,
waited
yeah, I
for
would get up early for that.
right, like while we waited for the washing machines to stop, before we put the clothes in the dryer. And then I would fold towels and socks and panties. Those were my jobs, and my mother did
Mhm.
all the other things. And um and I was like her little helper. Same thing like before, like holiday meals, the night before the holiday when your mom's up all night cooking. I
Yes.
was up all night cooking with my mother, whether I was chopping onions or whatever. Like
Uh-huh.
I was always the one, because that was the only time that I really felt seen by her, was if I was doing things
Wow.
like that, and it never went away.
Wow. We just learn how to navigate it,
Yep.
but those urges are still they're still
Mhm.
there. I mean,
Mhm.
and it's interesting hearing you talk about your mother because I'm sitting here and in my mind I'm like, do we have the same mom?
Right?
Because I feel like we're the same person because everything that you have done, I had an older brother. We're 10 months apart, and he was, the popular kid in high school. I was more of the quiet, artistic, kind of in that category. Nerd, is what my label was. And he was more outgoing, he sung, he played the drums, he was on track and tennis, and I was just in art and science and the newspaper, you know. And so he always had a crowd of friends, whereas I never really did. I would have maybe one or two close people, and that was it. And just seeing how open he was and how much attention he got, I used to long for that. But I I went about it in a way that was more from a wounded place, was more from insecurity, not from I'm confident and here I am and I just want to be around you people. It was more of I hope you like me, I'm going to wear this outfit so maybe I'll get seen, you know, um I'm going to join this club with my brother just because he's in it and maybe I'll get the same kind of accolades that he does with his friends. And when I look back on that, if I could have talked to myself, my high school self, be like, what are you doing? you know, you are exactly where you need to be and who you need to be. But that need for attention and for acknowledgement, it runs really deep. It definitely does.
Yeah, it totally does. Oh my goodness. I can't even believe some of I had forgotten about so much of that
Wow.
until now. I don't know that I don't think I've ever shared that period story before because
Wow.
I forgot about it. But I remember exactly what I was wearing. It
Oh
was
my goodness.
this gray skirt that my mother made for me, and she had made a this the top was patterned, but it had like kind of like deep burgundies and maybe dark purples in it. And my sister had the exact same outfit,
Mhm.
but the like the same colors, but like the way it looked was different. But I remember exactly that I was wearing that.
Interesting. Wow. That's so now it's all like we're unearthing the onion is being peeled and
Yep.
the layers are being revealed.
So
Wow.
fascinating. Oh my
Yes, it
goodness.
is.
Look, our conversations are always like this anyway.
It is. I always have an aha moment or something where it's just like, oh my God, I gotta write this down. I gotta take some notes. There's so much juice in our conversations. It's always a
Yes.
beautiful thing.
Well, let's have some intercourse questions now. This is just the
Okay.
intercourse portion of our conversation.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask you three fill in the blank questions,
Okay.
and just first thing pops in your mind. Look, and this is I wrote this after as we were talking. I was like, okay, this is good. Okay, so
Okay.
I feel loved when.
Ooh, I love that question. I feel loved when I clear my schedule and I take time to sit and be still and to actually literally feel love.
Oh, that's
That's when I
beautiful.
feel, that was a hard thing for me before. How do you cultivate inner love? How do you love yourself? We hear it all the time, self love this and self love that. And I was like, when? Like, I can do a lot of different things, but when I'm just still and I acknowledge and I really truly believe that we all are love. We come from love. We are love. And so when we really get that, and I only get that when I can sit still and really focus on that. And that's the beautiful moment for me.
Wow, that's so expansive.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel worthy when.
Mm. Me and that word we've had words before. Me and Worthy used to not get along at all. Hmm. You know what? And my answer might be a little bit um circular here, but to be quite honest, I feel worthy when I allow myself to feel worthy.
Mm,
And I say that because I feel like we're born worthy. There's nothing extra that we have to do. And that's been something I had to be reminded of. And so the only thing that has kept me from that has been cutting myself off from feeling that. And the only
mm.
thing I have to do to get back to that, I don't have to pay for anything. I don't have to try to get anybody's affection or attention. I just have to make a mental and heart connection that, wait a minute, I need to just allow this because it's already there. I'm just shutting a part of myself off from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're so insightful.
Let me tell you, you have been a definite part of this journey to insightfulness for me.
Well,
This is brand new.
that makes 2 of us because I feel so nourished every single time we talk.
Oh, beautiful. Ditto.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
I feel seen when
Hmm. Now, this one I will have to take a breath on. Um, I feel seen. I feel seen when I actually take a moment to expand myself. And what I mean by that is, we have these moments, and you and I have talked about this, where we are either very expansive in our energy or we're very contracted in our energy. And that could be, waking up. Being contracted can be just waking up, worrying about bills and all of, life stresses. And there's a part of you that kind of shrinks. You want to stay in a house. You want to, put the covers over your head. You want to hide. And even though you're hiding from the world, you're also hiding from yourself. So when I actually take the time to get up, to go out into nature, really, and to spread my arms and to take a deep breath and to go for a walk and feel the air in my lungs, that's when I really feel seen. And when I say seen, it doesn't matter about who else is around. It's just that's when I see myself and I feel like the universe sees me. And that's when I'm at my best, is because I'm not worried about anybody else or anything else. I'm just there in a moment. And that's when you're there in a moment, you're being authentic and you're being present. And that's when you can truly be seen on the inside and on the outside.
that was good. That was good. Long Story Short is an advice column for achy breaky hearts, curious libidos, and desperately seeking humans of the female persuasion. If you're looking for straight from the hip advice, because emotion loves to settle in the hips, you're in the right place. Long Story Short provides real world advice for women like you. Why? Because sometimes you need a little perspective about the shit that's going on in your life. Submit your long story short to bit.ly/long story short advice. Do you ever struggle to allow yourself to be seen by others?
Oh, daily, yes. Absolutely. Everything, the whole being seen and expanding, it's a daily practice. I'm not going to say it's a daily struggle because I don't want to put that out there. It's a daily practice,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like everything else I've had to practice. You kind of stumble in the beginning, and I feel like, I'm getting there. This has been definitely within the last couple of years a new practice for me, but I'm getting better at allowing myself to be seen, and in a way that's authentic and not how do I want other people to perceive me, thinking about it from an external point of view, and really just how do I feel like showing up today. you know so that's something that I do. I mean, and I'm gonna tell you, especially around that time of the month, there are days where I'm just like, no, I don't want to be around anyone. I don't want to be seen. But
You That's a great point though, because when when we're actually menstruating,
mhm,
we've been conditioned to think we're supposed to push through, but it's a
yeah,
natural instinct to want to cocoon during that time, to go
mhm,
within, and you, like you said, to not particularly be seen, to
mhm,
swaddle and kind of be introspective. There's so
Right.
much clarity that can come through during that time, but we've been so conditioned to be like, "Oh, you're just being bitchy." No, I just don't feel like being fucking bothered. Like, and it and it's
Exactly.
okay if I don't wanna be bothered. Like, why is that a thing?
Exactly, and and I think back to indigenous times when women were on their cycle, we went off not because we were seen, in some cultures it was seen as impure, but in native cultures, native and African cultures, it was seen as a time for a woman to connect with nature, to be more connected with the moon, more connected with her cycle and her intuition. And so it was actually all of the emotions that we store up throughout the month as our uterine lining is growing and expanding. A lot of our emotions, you know, the seed of that is in our womb. So when we bleed, that's actually a time when we're shedding all of the emotions and everything that we have absorbed and picked up energetically, physically, whatever, throughout the course of the month. And so it's a time where you're supposed to be. That's our yin time. We're talking about yin and yang, it's a yin time, a time to go inward and express outwardly. We're going in to really focus on that which we want to clear out, and then what we want to bring in afterwards. So yeah, it's a time that I like to take alone.
Right?
And I wasn't always conscious about what was happening there, and that did cause a lot of, emotional and physical stress during that time. But I noticed as I'm softened more into being okay with that, at that time not being seen and saying, look, I have days and I have times of the month where I shine brighter. This is not one of those times. And so I'm going to take that time to just be with me and be okay with that.
Absolutely. This is a great segue because,
Mhm.
as a woman, I know one of my what continues to be work, like my continuous work, and it probably will be lifelong,
Mhm.
is actually allowing myself to receive. And as I'm saying this,
Mhm.
I'm looking at a sticky note that I wrote I don't know how long ago on a
Uh-huh.
sticky note that says smile on the top of it in flowers, and there's a quote that says, "You can only get what you have the capacity to receive," by Maru.
Maru is amazing. And
Isn't she?
oh my goodness. So it's interesting that you say that because I have, right on my walls, I have, the sticky notes everywhere, with different things. And I have on on my wall, my life is expanding in so many beautiful ways. My capacity to receive love expands infinitely like the
Yes.
universe.
Yes.
With the smiley face.
Right? I still wear my blue infinite receiving bracelet all the time.
I have it on right now.
Right?
It goes with me everywhere.
Yes. So
It's such a great reminder.
tell me a little bit about your own challenge. I won't even say struggle, but your own
Mhm.
challenges with receiving.
Well, it first starts with knowing that I didn't even know I had a challenge with receiving.
You and
You
me
know,
both. The only money problem when someone talked about money blocks, I
mhm.
used to dismiss that conversation because I would say the only money block I have is not enough. Like I didn't
Right.
I didn't entertain
Exactly.
nothing else. I was like, I don't know why people keep talking about money blocks because the only block I have is that my bank account does not reflect what I want it to.
Exactly. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I was in a program actually to help with money blocks. About a year ago, I started realizing that as I was building my business, something was off. What I was putting out was not what I was getting back in. And there was that energetic, from an energetic standpoint, because I'm all about energy, there was that energetic drain. And it's like, driving the car, but only, putting $1 worth of gas back in, and that's what I was feeling. And so I started to look at money blocks and where they were coming from. I looked at my family life, how we talk about, we take on our family's old beliefs about money, things that we've heard, money is the root of all evil. I can't afford this too expensive. All of these kind of negative things about money. And that's how it started. My journey with receiving started is learning about that. And it was about, I would say, 6 months ago or so, where I was reading a book, and I believe it was a book by Jen Sincero. I'm a badass at making money, which, if you've never read that book, I would highly suggest it. It's hilarious. She's very real, raw, down to earth, and there's a lot of aha moments in that book for me. But there was a point when she talked about being open to receiving money, and I was like, I did that kind of Scooby Doo, like, what? What does that mean? Being open to receiving, like, of course I'm open to receiving. I don't have enough, so of course I'm gonna be open to receiving more. But that was my aha moment, was seeing that, wait a minute. In that moment, I said, there's two parts to this. It's the desire, and then the ability to receive the desire. And I'm telling you, when I jumped out of my seat knowing that, because I started realizing, as I was clearing all of these money blocks, the one thing I had not focused on was being open energetically and even physically to receiving it. Receiving that in my life, receiving. And from money, I also talked about, because it's never really just about money. It's typically about pleasure. Am I open to
Yes.
receiving more pleasure in my life? And that's when I realized that I was not. I was closed down. There were locks and bolts on the door. There was a security code, guard dog. It was completely shut down. And that was the moment, and I could feel it in my body, that moment when it was just like, oh, Mia, you're on to something. This is it. You have been so close to receiving. And so what that led me to is to think about times in my life where I had pushed away receiving something. And something that everyone can relate to is compliments. You know, we talk, depending upon how you were brought up, you're taught to be very humble, and that was definitely me. And so whenever someone would give me a compliment, I would get extremely bashful and try to take the attention. And interesting thing, because we talked about wanting attention, I would take that attention away from me because I felt uncomfortable with receiving something that was pleasurable. And in this case, it was a compliment, you know? And from there, I just looked at other aspects of that, and I was like, wow, there's so much that I have closed myself off to without even knowing it. Like, clothes was
Mm.
actually my default,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
It's so interesting that you say that. I just finished reading the most amazing fiction book that I
Yeah.
can't stop recommending it to everyone that I talk to.
Okay, I'm gonna take a
Um,
note.
okay, the book is called The Little Paris Bookshop. Oh my God. Oh
Ooh.
my goodness. It's written by this woman, Nina George, and I believe she's German, but it's
Okay.
beautiful. It is luscious in the sense that
Mm.
it's so descriptive. And, of course, Paris is an amazingly sensuous place anyway. It's
Yes.
visually stunning, and the smells and the tastes and the textures. And so all of those things are in the book. But it's actually about this man who runs a bookshop, but it's on a
Mhm.
barge. And he doesn't say it, he doesn't call himself a bookseller. He calls
Mhm.
himself a literary um a literary pharmacist. And he calls
Ooh.
his book his shop an apothecary. So he feels like he prescribes books. He doesn't sell them.
Love it.
And so one of the there were so many really great insightful moments in the book, but one of the things Look, and now I'm gonna try to find the quote that I read fiction with a notebook just like I do nonfiction because
Uh-huh.
there are always so many. The characters say amazing shit, you know, like
They do. They absolutely do. And that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up because I do need to get back into reading more fiction novels. That's something that always gave me pleasure, and I've kind of sneaked away from that in my years. So I'm
well,
glad we were talking
yeah,
about this.
when you're building a business, it's easy to get away from it. But you know, one of the great things about reading fiction that
Mhm.
I think people who don't necessarily indulge themselves, because I feel like fiction is definitely a delicious indulgence, but people that
Mhm.
don't indulge on fiction, they don't realize how fiction really expands your compassion muscle
Yes.
because you are forced sometimes to see beyond a
Mhm.
person because sometimes you don't like the character. You know, like there are characters, there's
Right.
always a character that you just are like, your fucking ass is annoying, you know, or I wish that
Yes.
I hope on the next page they kill you. You know, like there's those characters that you don't like that well. But the the great thing about fiction that doesn't always that you're not always able to do in real life is the author allows you to see the inner machinations of the character. You get to see why someone's acting like that. Whereas in real life,
Mhm.
if the person doesn't reveal it to you, you just think they're an asshole for the sake of being an asshole, right? But in
Exactly.
fiction, you get to see all of the dimensions. You get to hear the inside the person's head and see why what's driving the behavior, so it actually makes you more compassionate. But
That's an interesting point.
yeah, so
Yes, so
you
true.
feel deeply, you know, because this book doesn't have any characters actually that you feel like there are no characters that you hate in the book. Everybody's
Okay.
amazing, but they're complex characters, and your
Okay.
heart aches and bursts and joy rises and love is effervescent. Like I felt all of these things, and I
Mm.
didn't. It's one of the few fiction books that I actually can't wait to read it again because I know I'm going to get something else. But one of the characters in the book brought up a point about loving. And I
Mm.
hadn't really thought about this before. But as a woman, at least in my life, I am much more comfortable loving than I am being loved.
Wow. Yes. I can relate
Right?
to I can relate to that. Yes.
I didn't
Yes,
even
yes,
know.
yes. That's an aha for me.
Yep. I didn't even know until I read a fiction book.
Wow.
That's why fiction's important. But that's
Mhm.
why fiction. But there were so many great things. Like here was another question that was posed in the book. Is your body capable of loving and being loved? Your body.
Mm.
Like, you know, we think
Mm.
about our hearts, but when I think about when I read that, the reason it was so telling because I could think of all of the times when someone embraced me when I couldn't receive it, when I
Mm.
stiffened instead of softened.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And in those
Yes.
moments, my body wasn't able to be loved.
Right.
The times when when I was making love, or it should have been, but it couldn't have been because I wasn't in the room.
Yes.
Right? You know,
Mhm.
like it
Yep.
should have been making love, but it wasn't because I wasn't in the room. The
Right.
times when pleasure was at my fingertips and I couldn't, I opened my hand instead of grasping.
Mm.
You know what I
Girl.
mean? Like, I felt
Yes.
all of the I was like, "Oh my god." Like, it was like a movie playing because I literally could see so many experiences where I slammed the door in love's face.
Mm.
But I was willing to open it if it meant me loving somebody. But often I couldn't receive love in return. Not to mention, I sometimes it was that I couldn't receive the flavor of love that was being offered.
Yes. I am you are first of all, Miss Wordplay here. like I felt that because that's so true. It's and sometimes it's because we have an idea in our mind of what love is supposed to look like, feel like, taste like.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
and this is about receiving as well. That is something that I have learned, and this can be applied to, relationship, business, money, whatever, is that we are so focused. We get our tunnel vision set on one thing, and it says it has to come like this. He has to be 6'2" and work, in a good corporate job with great benefits, and or something of that nature, or I have to make money only through having my own business, my own company. And yet, and still, we only see this one door, but there are all these doors surrounding us, on top of us, behind us, and below us that are opening, but everything is just stagnant there because we're trying to get this one door to open. And so
Mhm.
we're not open to receiving, like you said, that flavor of the way it wants to come.
Yes. It's such a thing. And I think that we don't, it's so easy not to connect money and love and sex. It's
Yeah.
so easy to think that, okay, sex and love go together, but not money,
Oh,
or sex and money go together, but not love, right?
right.
Let's
And they
let's
are they
be
are
real.
they are
But
triplets.
exactly. It's
Package
but
deal.
it's so easy to not see the connection,
Yeah.
and again, like, to look at, like, okay, my money isn't flowing, and but rather than looking at, when the money doesn't flow, we immediately start looking or thinking of ways to create money, or how to get a job, or how to get a new client, or whatever. But we rarely will make the connection to, okay, my money isn't flowing, but am I allowing love?
Right.
Like, am I allowing myself to receive love?
Mhm. Yes.
And I'm so much more comfortable loving than being loved. And I'm getting much better at saying thank you,
Mhm.
and allowing someone to just do something for the sake of my pleasure.
Yes.
Rather
Yes.
than, and without, because this is the thing, this is what I'm so accustomed to doing, is if someone gives me something or does something that's pleasurable for me, then I immediately feel like I have to reciprocate in some way. And
Exactly. And that
so I'm getting better at just letting that be, letting someone give me something and just saying thank you without feeling like, like if someone gives you a gift, now you got to go out and get a gift. No, you don't.
right. Yeah, and as women, we do that all the time.
All the time.
The compliment. It's like somebody gives you a compliment, and you feel like you start searching them, like, okay, what can I compliment them on, right? In this moment, and it's
Mhm.
like a thank you and a pause is all
Yes.
that needs to happen. And I'm
Yes.
getting, and at first it's uncomfortable because that part of you wants to like jump back to say something, and it's like still it's taking the spotlight off of you. But sometimes you need that spotlight, and you need to be comfortable in that space, like in that little sea of love that was just created for you. You need to get comfortable with swimming in it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, real
So
juicy stuff.
so expansive. Okay, so the last quote from this book, and it's a question that I think is a great next question. How
Mhm.
long have you ever been genuinely happy in one stretch?
Ooh.
Right?
Whoa.
Look, this is
Wow.
fiction. This is fiction. This is the reason that people need to read more fiction, because
What was that
these
author's
kinds,
name again?
Nina George. There's another book that she just came out with, The Little French Bistro. I haven't read that one yet, but I can't wait, because I'm like, I loved the Little Paris Bookshop so much that I can't even believe that it hadn't been on my TBR. And
Wow.
I'm such a book whore that whenever I get like, it's so bad that, like, when
Yes.
if I'm on Twitter and someone mentions a book, I immediately go to my library app to see if they have it at the library. And it was a book that someone mentioned. Actually, it was a book that came on an email. Like, I'm on all kinds of, I'm subscribed to all kind of lists that are about books and writing and stuff. And it was a
Mhm.
book that was in an email, and I looked it up. I read the description and then I looked it up, and then I was so excited when I found that it was at the bookstore. I mean, at the library,
Mhm.
and I read it. And since I it's been several weeks since I finished the book, and I can't stop talking about it, and I can't stop
Mhm.
telling people about how they need to read it because it was
Mm.
that good to me. It was just
Wow.
so, oh my goodness, like all of the feelings and all of this insight. Like I literally, I mean, I typically take notes. It's not unusual for me to
Yeah.
take notes when I'm reading a fiction book, but this one, and when I
Mhm.
sat with the how long have you ever been genuinely happy in one stretch, my knee jerk reaction to that
Mhm.
question was, it's easier for me to measure how long I've been unhappy in one stretch, because that I don't
Yes.
experience unhappiness in I never experience it for long periods of time.
Right.
However, the opposite of unhappy isn't necessarily happy. There's a lot of space in between there. And so I
Absolutely.
struggled to be able to measure. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And that just was it just reminded me that I probably haven't been as present for my happiness, and that's why I
Mm.
can't remember.
Yes. Wow. I can relate to that. And I'm
Right?
sure we're not the only women who can completely be like, "Whoa," mind blown in this moment. I was
Mhm.
asked by a coach of mine, when was to recall a time when I had a lot of joy in my life. And I remember I was on the phone with her, or we were doing a video call, and I sat there and I started to get embarrassed because in this moment, this was several months ago, just like I can't really, I don't know that I can answer that question because, and it's for the same reasons you said, I don't think I was as present for the joy and for the
Mhm.
happiness as I have been for the sorrow and the struggle because those things seemed pressing at the time, even though it was just a case of me being um, in the habit of paying attention to those things, making them important. And so, to answer that question, I'm going to have to say that I am at the starting line in the last 2 months of being present for my happiness. And so, this is the start of what I consider to be my long stretch now.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Hmm.
Yeah. And I'm going to start by first downloading that book so that I can
I
dig
cannot
into
recommend
it.
I can't recommend it enough. I really can't. Like that book with your
Mhm.
Guinness float, that right there, like
Ooh. Yeah.
actually, you know what? That book is not a Guinness float book. It's a wine. It's a wine glass.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely it's a book that should be savored. So it
Mm.
definitely is more of a glass of wine on, an evening. And I don't even know, it doesn't feel like a weekend book to me. It feels like a,
Okay.
curled up at the end of the day, you in your bed, like with the lamp on,
Mm.
with your dog laying at your feet. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
like
set the stage.
yes, it's with a glass of wine, and it's that book. That's the setting for the book.
Oh, that sounds expansive and pleasurable and delicious and like it's going to happen
Yes,
tonight.
like I really can't recommend that book enough. Like it's so beautifully written. Like the
Mm.
language, the descriptions, I mean the way that he describes books. And there are a lot of
Mhm.
like books that are like dropped in there. So like there are notes for
Okay.
that, like books that he mentions
Ooh,
or he prescribes to some of the characters. But it's just so good. It's so so good.
I
It's
love
it's
that.
very it's a very sensual read, but very entertaining also.
I can't wait. Thank you for sharing that. I'm looking forward to. I'm a book whore as well, so whenever I can hear a name drop. I think I've probably downloaded 10 books already in the last 3 weeks. So
Right?
yes.
Yes. Well, that one I recommend you putting it at the top. Like, cuz I think especially like, we're like summer's almost over. We're midway through summer now. And
Mm,
it's a great summer read. But you're gonna want to it will be a great book club book because for women,
mm,
I feel like, because sometimes when we think about reading books for women, we only want to read nonfiction. Like right now,
yeah.
Mama Gina's Pussy is a popular women's book club book, and I have it. I
Mhm.
haven't read it yet, and I heard it was great. But I mean, I
Okay.
think that there's something to be said about fiction and how that too can be really expansive for you as a person because
Right.
fiction books are written by people, they're about people,
Right. Exactly. Yes.
so they offer just as much, as nonfiction. So
Insight. I
yeah.
agree.
So good, so good. Well, this is a great place for us to now have a few aftercare questions. So how do you like to be taken care of after an evening of lovemaking? Like how do you like to be taken care of when it's all done?
Mm. I'll have to say I'm one of those who it's like snuggle me in,
Mhm.
make me a hot cup of tea.
Right?
I tend to get hungry after. Maybe a couple strawberries, cherries,
Mhm.
maybe some fruit. That's always just something succulent right afterwards
Mhm.
to have afterwards. A little honey in the tea and
Mhm.
hold me, rub my feet, rub my back, rub my fingers, just rub whatever you can get your hands on. And let's just fall asleep together. That's how I like to be taken care of.
Yes, that's beautiful. What's
Yeah.
the best after sex compliment you've ever given someone?
Wow. Um, that's interesting. I've never been asked that question before. Let's see. The best compliment. I think the best compliment would be that I have ever given would be like, I feel complete.
Oh, that was
I
good.
feel complete. I remember
Yeah.
just laying there and and this is probably before I fell asleep because it definitely completed me at that point. At that
Mhm,
point,
mhm,
I'm just saying, I feel so complete right now. I don't need anything else. I am good.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt that, but I've never said that to somebody. Like, I remember, like, having an amazing experience with somebody and later saying to myself, "I feel so complete in that experience that I don't care if I ever see him again." But I didn't
Mm.
say it. Like, as
Yes.
it was just something I had. I guess, yeah. Yeah, but I guess now I feel like I should say it to the person, like, "I feel complete." That's good.
Mhm.
You're amazing.
Ditto, sister. You
Yeah,
are
you're
too.
amazing. This was so good.
This is fun. Thank you
Yeah,
for having me on.
thank you. This was so insightful. Look, now I'm still thinking about that damn outfit I was wearing in the 7th grade. I can't even believe that I unearthed that. It's so crazy how you bury
Yes.
these moments, these moments so deep. And,
Mhm.
I was just having a conversation with someone yesterday, and I said something like, I just want to enjoy all there is to enjoy for however long it lasts. And the other
Mhm.
person said, well, I want it to last long. And I said, but you see, if it lasts for one moment or 20 years, it will still feel like a moment.
Mm. Yes.
Like no matter how much time
Absolutely.
passed, it's still going to feel like it was too fast or too soon. And so I think, like, I just don't want to, I no longer want to measure things by how long they last. I really, the same way I don't want to, like, I don't measure whether something tastes good. I would rather it be quality over quantity. But I
Yes.
feel the exact same way about moments and relationships and experiences. Like, I really don't care how long. I just
Mhm.
want to enjoy the quality of the experience when I'm in it, because at the end it won't matter. It's the same, again, it's the same thing
Mhm.
with food. Like, if something tastes really good or you have a lot of it,
Mhm.
when you're done, there's a part of you that's going to still feel like you want more.
Right.
Whether you want it more flavor or more food, like,
Exactly.
it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Exactly. And that reminds me of the best date I had ever been on is something that it wasn't even with a boyfriend or a prospect at the time. It was just me and a friend. And it wasn't even classified as a date. But when I compare it to real dates I've actually been on, I'm like, wow, it lasted a moment, but I can think about that. Like I have that for the rest of my life as an experience in in my mind, and in my heart that was so beautiful. And it was such quality to it. It
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of time, but it was such good quality that I can think about it now and feel like I'm right in the middle, you
Hmm.
know.
This is one
Yeah.
of those moments. This conversation has been one of those things for me.
Oh, ditto. This has been such a fun time. I wish it was 2 hours long.
Right? Well, not like, look, we talk for 2 hours all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with me. Thank you for allowing your heart to be open and for you modeling so beautifully what it looks like to be present.
Mm. Thank you for holding the space for me to do that. Thank you.
I'm so grateful. I love you, sister.
I love you too.
The Sensuality Project is produced, edited, and hosted by me. Music by bensound.com. The Sensuality Project podcast is a production of StaceyHerrera.com.